We are not here to panic. Nope, we're not. We are here to position. Today, we're going to break down some of the headlines in the news regarding finances, and we're going to build up our faith. So make sure you grab your notebooks, your favorite writing utensil, grab your favorite healthy beverage. Oh, yes, and your Bible too. And after this intro, we'll be right back with episode number 34, Position, Not Panic. Hey there, welcome saving and investing. And I'm 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1 and 2, saying that finances are not a set forgiveness. Hey there, welcome to the Radical Godly Stewardship podcast. This is episode number 34. This is the show where heaven's economy collides with Earth's assignments. I am your host, Dr. Lexi Johnson, financial rebel, kingdom disruptor, and your accountability coach into obedience. Around here, we do not beg God for money. We produce, we multiply, and we dominate because stewardship isn't just about money, it's about mindsets, missions, and multiplying what's been placed in your hands. So if you're tired of playing small and praying broke and calling it faith, you're in the right place. So let's dive in. All right. Listen, first of all, let me just say it's a little dark in here, and it is what it is, right? I didn't feel like fooling around with light shenanigans today, but prayerfully it is not too dark for you to enjoy. Now, I want to share today's truth with you. Okay, today's truth bomb with you, and that is the world is shaking, right? There's a lot going on. It's causing some uncertainty. It's causing some to panic. It is causing some fear. So the world is shaking, but the kingdom is not. Okay? We have been given, according to scripture, we have been given a kingdom that is unshakable. All right? So we're going to talk about some of the headlines that have been in the news, some of these things that have caused, some volatility in economics or in the economy. And we are going to talk about how we as kingdom citizens must react to what we're hearing. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about, first of all, the tariffs, right? So there's been a lot of talk about tariffs for several weeks now. The next announcement about the tariffs is expected to come on July 8th. President Trump's new global tariffs, especially on Chinese imports, are pushing up prices across the board. And now you have retailers like Target, Walmart, and some other big name ones that are already warning, if you will, let's putting it nicely, they're threatening, right? Price hikes because they say that they are not going to be able to eat all of the increase that the tariffs will cost. Now, of course, the president, he thinks he can tell these companies what to do, right? And he is adamant that they are not to pass these costs down to the consumer, okay? You and I. But how many of you know, right, that honestly speaking, there likely is only so much that they can eat, right? If you're a business owner on any level, you don't even have to be a huge business owner to understand this. But when there is increase, in the costs for you to either make the product, have the product in your inventory or your service, when there's an increase in those costs, sometimes you can't eat the costs and sometimes you cannot. And many times that cost could be passed on to the consumer, right? And so that's what these retailers are saying. Target, Walmart, all of them, they're saying, look, we're not going to be able to eat these costs, not all of it. So there are going to be price hikes. Okay. They are going to pass the cost on directly to consumers. What does that mean? Okay. The translation, it means your groceries, your gas, a lot of your other goods, they're all about to cost more. Now, again, the president, keeps trying to keep everybody calm by saying there isn't going to be price hikes, but he really is not in control of that, right? These companies are in control of that. And so, what do we as kingdom citizens do, right? I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But we've already seen some price hikes. And if these tariffs keep going in that direction, we will likely see some more price hikes. And so, because of that, we can be panicking in our day to day finances because guess what? The jobs aren't paying out more. Uh, they're not going to be giving any raises, not especially if they have to pay out more for the goods and services that they are, whatever materials and things they need to provide the goods and services. So if they've got to increase costs on that end, I don't know, right? It is highly likely that you can't expect a decent raise, if any at all. Well, not only are the tariffs, still an issue, the just announcing what's going on with tariffs, right? So when they were first instituted, that had an effect on the market. The market was volatile, right? What's going on now with these companies threatening price hikes is affecting the market, right? And whatever he's going to announce on July 8th is going to affect the market. How has it been affecting the market? Well, with each one of these announcements, people have decided, maybe I should take some of this money out, right? Because I'm going to need it for my everyday costs. Or maybe I should take this money out because now people are going to tighten up. So they're not going to spend much on particularly luxury types of things, right? So your hospitality industry might slow down, you know, any luxury cars, just a lot of other things that people don't necessarily need. Those things may may slow down, right? Or may have already started to slow down. Buying homes may slow down. So all of these decisions that people are making on a daily basis are affecting those who are investing. And for those who don't really know a whole lot about investing, they're panicking, right? Um, and they are selling off, right? So the crazy thing is, and we'll talk about this more, is they're selling off while the prices have dropped. And that is not a good time to sell off, okay? It's actually a time to build, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. When I say build, buy more shares. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So these announcements are having effects. And if we need to be paying attention, but not to be in fear, not to panic, but to be positioned, right? Another thing that we learned was that Moody's, which is a company that evaluates companies, they, and they're, what do I want to say? They invest their, um, the word in my mind is like how solid they are. That's the phrase that's in my mind, but there is a word and I can't think of it. But anyway, they invest how solid companies are. They not invest, they rank, they evaluate how solid companies are. They evaluate countries, right? So Moody's just downgraded the United States credit rating from a AAA to an AA1. Okay. This is the first time in over a century that the US credit rating has slipped down. The first time in a century. Okay. So imagine the volatility that that can cause in the market as well, particularly for those who are not as savvy about investing, right? Oh my goodness, Moody's has now just downgraded the US credit rating. How horrible, right? So now you got people selling off all kinds of things. They're selling off even their US treasuries, right? Maybe even other countries that are invested in the United States. Maybe they're selling off. I don't know or not. If they are a country that is driven by some panic and fear, they may be doing that. Okay. So that doesn't sound good, especially when we're saying this is the first time that has happened in over a century, right? So what does that say? Well, we've got rising debt, but we haven't really yet still been effective in cutting spending, right? Um, if Trump decides to hold up the tax cuts that started in 2017, because every so often they have to kind of reconfirm those or reaffirm those and say, yes, we're going to keep going with those. If he decides to do that, right? And there is no spending cuts, right? The US is still spending as it normally does. Some experts are saying that this could be another $4 trillion of debt that the US will be in, right? So this is why Moody's is like, we're downgrading the credit rating. This is one of the reasons why, right? So you got this rising debt. The country has not been able to effectively cut its spending. And that's hard, right? Because now Medicaid is also faced with cuts and significant cuts. And then so here, the country, the administration is trying to stop the bleeding. And at the same time, you've got all of these people who are going to be affected because there are a lot of people who benefit from Medicaid. And so if there are extreme cuts to that, what does that mean for the everyday person who who has Medicaid, right? Are pharmaceutical costs going up, doctor's visits going up, um, insurance costs, just all kinds of things that are going to be going up. It really, there really isn't. I know people are trying to think that there is a way to do this, to cut spending without, while still upholding all these other things, but it doesn't work like that. Okay. It doesn't work like that. Even when I'm working with my clients in the financial rebellion course, which, by the way, stay tuned if you're following me on social media, because we're going to announce a really cool Memorial Day um, offer. So, anyway, stay tuned. But for those who have been in my class, I'm always talking about like when there is profuse bleeding, right? So we're going to liken the spending, the US spending, to profuse bleeding. When there is profuse bleeding, when you have profuse bleeding, what is usually the protocol for that? Well, they're like, no, we need to get a tourniquet and we need to apply it. Okay. So wherever the bleeding is, we need to apply the tourniquet above it, the artery, over the artery that is supplying that bleed, right? And when a tourniquet is it applied loosely or is it applied tightly? Is tightly a word? Anyway, it is applied and it is very tight. A tourniquet is not something that's comfortable. If you've ever had to have one applied, I remember when I was in nursing school, we learned how to apply them and we had to use each other, right? As as test dummies, if you will. We had to practice on each other. And so you apply that tourniquet and it would be really tight and it is not comfortable at all. It can even be downright painful because it's so tight, right? But the bleeding has to be stopped. And so that's the same thing that has to happen in your finances, right? You cannot say that you want to be in a better place financially, but you don't want to cut costs and nor do you want to produce income. Okay. It has to be one or the other or two. You either have to go out and make more income like now, or you have to cut costs like now, tighten up, pull that tourniquet, right? And some people have to do a combination of both. And this is the same place that the US is in. All right. So whatever cuts are going to come, whether it's to Medicaid or they decide not that and something else, we're not going to like it. We're not going to like it because this is a season where the tourniquet must be applied and pulled tightly to stop the bleeding. Okay. Um, I don't know why, for the life of me, we always feel like we can just keep spending and somehow we're going to make more money, right? Because how does the US then make more money? Well, the US makes more money through taxes. Okay. So if they decide to keep the tax cuts up, they got to they have to figure out some other way to bring in income if they're going to keep the tax cuts going and they are not going to cut spending. The US has to figure out a way to produce more income. Okay. Which is what the tariffs can contribute to, but it's also going to have an effect on us. And then the only other way, one of the things that people have been looking for, is student loan relief. And some people have gotten it, but it hasn't been this sweeping student loan relief that many were hoping for. And I'm going to tell you why, because the student loan income is one of the top 3 ways in which the United States makes money. Okay. So you got rising debt, political dysfunction, and it's not because of the administration that is in now. There is political dysfunction, and there has been political dysfunction no matter what administration has been in. And then we've got the lack of fiscal discipline. Okay. This is what's going on. So what do we do as kingdom citizens when this economy looks like chaos, when no one has the guts, if you will, to allow for a tourniquet to be applied and weather out these cuts until we can pay down the debt, stabilize some, and at the same time produce more income? This is the conundrum that we're in. Well, I want to, before we talk about what specifically we should do as kingdom citizens, I want to talk about King Saul. What does King Saul have to do with all of the chaos that we got going on right now? Well, I'll tell you. So in 1 Samuel chapter 13, verses 8 to 14. Now, I'm not going to be reading this. You can read this in your own time. So I'm going to be doing a summary of it. Okay. But you can turn there and you can kind of peruse it as I do so. 1 Samuel chapter 13, verses 8 to 14. God told King Saul to wait for the prophet Samuel to offer the sacrifice. All right. Prophet Samuel was seemingly taking his time getting there. Prophet Samuel was seemingly late for the party. Okay. And so Saul got nervous. Okay. His men were scattering. So here's the thing, just a little bit more background. They were preparing to go to war. And oftentimes, what the king would do is to seek God and figure out what they needed to do so that God would be with them, so that they would win the war. How did God want them to move forward? All right. So this is what was happening. So God instructed him to wait for the prophet, and Samuel was going to offer a sacrifice. So again, as Samuel was seemingly late, maybe even seemingly maybe even seeming like he wasn't coming, Saul got nervous. Okay. His men were scattering. The pressure is mounting. He's like, I got to do something because this thing didn't, the prophet hasn't shown up when he said he would, or time is getting, or maybe he didn't say he would, but the time is getting way beyond. We're getting closer to when we have to show up for battle. And so therefore I need to do something, right? How many of you in your finances, you've felt that way? The time is drawing near. Whatever it is, whatever the financial issue is, the time is drawing near. Maybe it's a bill that's due. Maybe it's overdue and they've given you an extension and that extension is now approaching. You have not gotten any instruction. So you think you've not gotten any instruction, because typically God gives us instruction, which was, hey, you need to go make some more income, or you need to cut costs. Those are the two basics anyway. But this deadline is approaching. Okay. The pressure is mounting. Your family is depending on you, or maybe you're a business owner that has to pay out your employees and they are depending on you. So there's this pressure that is mounting, and you thought that, okay, there was an answer that was given, but that answer doesn't seem to be manifesting quick enough, right? So you decide you've got to do something about it. Okay. This is where Saul was. He decided that he needed to do something about it. And so what he did was he erected the altar himself and gave and offered the sacrifice himself. Now, you would think that, well, wouldn't that have been a good thing to do? Sacrifice need to be made, and so therefore, he made it. But that was the worst thing that he could have done. Why? Because God had given him instructions. And no matter what it looked like, no matter that the men were scattering and chaos and this and that is going on, he needed to be still and know, right? As the scripture says, be still and know that I am God. He needed to be still. He needed to trust God. He needed to just follow the plan, the strategy. Okay. So let me tell you what his one act of worry and anxiousness cost him. That one act of anxious disobedience cost him the entire kingdom. When Samuel arrived, he asked him, like, what had he done? What did you do? What did you do? Right? And Saul was like, oh, I went out and made the sacrifice. I didn't see you coming. My men are scattering. The battle is approaching. So I went on and did the sacrifice. No biggie. He's like, that was not the plan. That was not the instructions that the Lord laid out. And because you did not follow these instructions, because you let your worry and your anxiousness get the best of you, now you have forfeited the whole kingdom. Had you not made that decision, God would have set up you and your family to rule for a long time to come. So what am I trying to say to you? Don't let the fear of the unknown, the uncertainty, the volatility of the market, we're not knowing what's going on with the tariffs and our price is going to increase or not increase or whatever the case may be. Do not let the fear make you forfeit your future by making a decision that you were not called to make. right? And so what we're not saying either is, well, you're just paralyzed and you do nothing. No, God has already given us instruction. Okay. He already has given us instruction. And so we're going to talk about that right after this break. All book clubs, it is time for a conversation that goes deeper than fiction. Stop Begging God for Money is the book your group didn't know it needed. Whether you're reading for growth, healing, or financial strategy, this kingdom centered guide brings bold truth, step by step action, and spirit led revelation. Discounts are available for bulk book club orders. Email support@mm4h.life to get your club started today. Let's turn your book club into a financial breakthrough circle. All right. So, those of you who have been following me, you know that my book, Stop Begging God for Money, was released last month. It is doing well. The people who are reading it have nothing but great feedback so far that I've been given, and they have found it to be very something that is transforming their mindsets about money. And they're also enjoying the practical how to's. So, make sure that you get your copy. You can get it at authorlexijohnson.com or on Amazon, right? And if you're a book club, or you don't even have, you maybe not a book club, but you run a ministry, a men's ministry, a women's ministry, a married couples ministry, a singles ministry, a whatever ministry, okay? Everyone can benefit from this. And if you're looking for something to help, um, as we should, as leaders of these ministries, if you're looking for something to help your people grow in their personal lives, then why not order this book in bulk and do a study, do a Bible study series, or or do something more similar to a book club. Read it and discuss it, right? So uh, email me if you are interested in ordering the book in bulk so that you could do something like that. And you can email support@mm4h.life. Okay, so let's continue. All right. So fear is not a strategy. All right. Some of y'all are watching the news and you're thinking, oh, should I pull my investments? Oh, should I stop giving? Right. So some of you have stopped giving to, church, to organizations and things like that. And trust me, I know because I'm feeling it, right? Because I have a philanthropic arm of my organization, MM4H, missions. And there are a couple of missions that we're supporting right now in Kenya and in Botswana. And I'm telling you, it is hard to get even $2 out of folk, okay? Because people are just fearful and they're unsure. All right. Some of you are saying, man, should I cancel my business launch? Is this a good time? Because it doesn't seem like people are spending money and this, that, or the other. And so some of you have already made those decisions. You've stopped doing it. You've pulled your investments. You've stopped giving. You've stopped, you're like, I'm just going to wait on that launch. Let me remind you. Heaven is not in a recession, and it never is. Heaven is not in a recession, and it never is. Okay. And so, unless you hear from the Lord clearly that you are not to do what he instructed you to do, then it's our responsibility to be obedient. See, we don't respond to headlines, okay? We respond to what God has instructed us to do, and we respond with obedience. Yes, the world is unstable. Yes, there is uncertainty, but isn't there always uncertainty? Always. Today, it's the tariffs and the, tax cuts and the Fed's not even knowing where they want to increase interest rates or lower your interest rates and all of that, right? Today it's that. Tomorrow it could be something else. A few years ago it was a pandemic, and before that it was some other things, the housing crisis and '08 and all of that. Listen, there's always uncertainty in the world, but our King is unshaken. So what we don't do is we don't make financial decisions from fear. We make them from faith. So if you are an investor in this season, calm down. Okay? Don't worry about, stop getting caught up in the emotion of the headlines and the news when they present stories to you, because it is their job to get you emotionally riled up one way or another, right? So calm down. Second, when they're talking about market crashes and things of that nature, it is a good time because that to buy more in the market, because that means the market is on sale. Now, you want to be strategic about how you do that and what you buy, right? If you are a passive investor, meaning that I've got some things invested, but I'm not in there every day trying to make decisions as to what should stay in my portfolio and what should stay out of my portfolio. So your portfolio probably looks a lot like having, mutual funds and ETFs and things of that versus a lot of individual stock, right? And bonds. So you just continue to do something called dollar cost averaging, which means that you have a certain amount that you invest every month. It doesn't matter what the economy is doing, whether it's up or whether it's down, you continue to invest. Now, you may want to talk to your financial professional and say, hey, does it make sense? Remind me what I'm invested in, what funds, what mutual funds that I'm invested in. Does it make sense at this time to move from one mutual fund to another mutual fund, depending upon the industry, or do I wait this out? So you can have those conversations with your professional, right? If you're an investor and you are an active investor, meaning you are the one who is making decisions on what you're going to invest in every week. You're invested in a lot of individual stock, like you got money in Apple by itself, not in a mutual fund. It's in Apple, it's in Target, it's in Walmart, it's in whatever. For you, you need to pay closer attention, right? You don't necessarily need to pull your money out, but in this season, the question you should be asking is, where are the opportunities? Okay. So if the announcement of tariffs, and if the tariffs, whatever announcement that brings on July 8th, you know, starts to have certain industries that are not going to be performing too well, because you're invested in individual stock and stuff, you don't want to take the plummet, right? But you're going to want to look for where are the opportunities? Where are the dollars going? If not Medicaid, then what will government be spending on? Because that's where you'll find your investment opportunities. If people are not going to be flying and stuff as much, what are they going to be spending on? And so those are the types of questions that you need to be asking yourself. If you're not an investor, you should be, okay, but that's another discussion. You should be doing that, because how else are you multiplying your money? And there's various different ways you can invest, right? Not just in paper assets, but real estate, business, and in other ways. But that's a conversation for another day. In your day-to-day finances, you're going to be like Joseph, and you're going to make sure that you have your storehouses in place. What are your storehouses? Your emergency fund, right? Your opportunity fund, your retirement fund, your oh goodness, I just had it on my mind. Anyway, those things. Also, stocking up on food and things of that nature. I teach my clients, like, every time you go shopping, take 10% of your budget to buy foods that you can put up in store, like those dry goods, right? Cases of water, things that you can set aside, right? In case tough times come. And the truth is, it's not really in case, it's just when, because that's the cycle of things. If you look at the story of Joseph, it's 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. After the 7 years of famine, there was plenty again, and it just kept going, right? And so that doesn't stop. Oh, it may not be 7 years and 7 years and 7 years. It could be, varies different. It could be 5 years and 2 years and 3 years and 8 years, then whatever. We're to be ready. So you're to have your storehouses in order, right? And another part of your storehouse, I'm just going to mention this briefly because this could be a show all in and of itself. Life insurance. People, please make sure that you have life insurance. We are not guaranteed to live another day, okay? Um, and you want to be prepared. Even if you can't get enough to cover all of your debt, at least get enough to put you in the ground so that your family doesn't have to be burdened with trying to figure out how to come up with that cost. I can't tell you the number of GoFundMe requests that I have seen that I have received in the last 3 weeks, let alone in all time, but in the last 3 weeks. And that does not have to be the case, okay? There are expensive options, there are cheaper options. Okay. You need to have life insurance. Now, by the way, I am licensed in life insurance in a few states. And so if you would like, you can check with me. And if I'm not licensed in your state, I can certainly connect you with someone who is. But make sure, okay, make sure that you have that. All right. Like I said, that could be a show in and of itself. All right. So we don't respond to headlines, we respond to obedience. We are part of a kingdom that is not shaken. We are part of a kingdom where when we are tuned in to the Almighty Yah, we're not going we're not going to be left hanging. We're not going to be unprepared. No. That is not what he desires for us. He desires for us to be prepared. So I'm always telling people, listen, that 10%, when you go grocery shopping and you take 10% of your budgeted amount for grocery shopping, and you're getting dry goods and stuff to put up, that's just something you should be doing all the time. Not when it seems like, oh, something bad is coming. No, you should be doing that at all times. Whatever I instruct, whatever the Bible instructs, because I'm instructing what the Bible instructs, you should be doing that at all times anyway. Okay? All right. So this week, I want you to ask yourself, where are you reacting instead of responding? Right? Because, and what does that mean? Well, you haven't been contributing to your storehouses, and now prices are going up, and now you have to respond. I mean, now you have to react instead of respond. See, if you were preparing, you just respond, which means that, oh, prices are going up. That's all right. I got 6 months worth of dry goods or whatever in here. So we good for a little while, and we're going to keep taking that 10% of our food budget and buying more, right? Are you letting CNN and Yahoo Finance and all of these other places dictate your stewardship? Because the only thing news that should be dictating your stewardship is that of the kingdom news, which is the Bible. Okay. Have you paused your assignment because of economic anxiety? Right? These are things I want you to ask yourself and answer honestly, and then go back and do what God has instructed you to do. Okay. Remember that faith is not the absence of wisdom. Okay. We want to be wise, but if you're tuned into God, the word says that he will give you wisdom and he will give it to you liberally. It also says we should desire it, right? So he'll give it to you. So faith is not the absence of wisdom. We are still being wise. We are still moving strategically. Faith is, though, the absence of fear. So we don't make decisions out of fear. You could forfeit your whole kingdom that the Lord has set for you, just like Saul did. And we don't want that, right? So this week, I want you to do an inventory, right? Review your finances, not to panic, but to plan. If there are some things that you're not doing that you should be doing, that God has already instructed you to be doing, then you need to be doing it. Okay? Continue giving, not because God needs it, because he'll need it, okay? But because you need the alignment. All right? You want to be protected in these times. And one of the ways of doing that is to give. Okay. So here's the thing. If your finances are set up, and I teach my clients how to allocate, if your finances are set up based on allocations, Again, this is another thing. You don't have to shrink back on your giving, right? Because you allocate for your giving regularly. Okay. The other thing that I want you to do is to stay the course on your assignments, because delayed obedience is still disobedience. All right. So, whatever God has instructed you to do, if in this season He's instructed you to launch a business, write a book, um, whatever the case may be, do it. Don't be afraid. Okay. If He called you to it, He'll see you through it. All right. Stay the course on your assignments and speak to yourself daily that I will not fear, for my God is with me. God is with you. I know some of you are going through a very difficult season right now. It's a crushing season, even. And I want you to know that that season is not to punish you, but it is to train you, to prepare you. Okay. So if this episode has stirred you, then you need to get your hands on my book. Okay. You need to get your hands on my book. Stop begging God for money. It was an Amazon hot new release. It was a bestseller in 7 categories and remained on the best-selling list for 6 days. Okay. So this is no joke. All right. The book is your blueprint for navigating financial uncertainty with kingdom confidence. Okay. This book needs to be in the hands of every kingdom citizen. If you already have your copy, thank you so much for being part of the movement. I'm going to ask you, please go to Amazon and review the book. Second, share it with someone. Let them know that they need this book. Or 3, gift someone a copy as well. Okay. You can grab your copy at authorlexijohnson.com. Or you can also get it on Amazon. Okay. But if you know, you know. I would prefer you buy it from my personal website, authorlexijohnson.com. But if you're buying from Amazon, that's fine too. Make sure that you leave a review, post about it, share it with somebody who needs to shift from panic to position. All right. All right. So here is my final thought for um, today. Here is my final thought for today. Oh, stay tuned for an announcement about this. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. It's a very cool Memorial Day offer that is going to come your way. So if you're following me on social media, if you're on my email list, stay tuned. All right. Okay. Here's what I want to say. This is how I want to end. This podcast went a little longer today, but I felt that this was important. Listen, God didn't call you to be a weather reporter. Okay. What does that mean? Every way the wind blows, right? You're moving with the wind. That's not what he called you to do and be. What he called you to be is a world changer. That's what he called you to be. He called you to be someone who would produce, multiply, and dominate. So when the economy shakes, you don't panic. You are positioned, right? When prices rise, we rise higher. When fear knocks, you answer with faith. Okay? That's what we're doing. So that's a wrap today on the Radical Godly Stewardship Podcast. I am Dr. Lexi Johnson, your favorite financial rebel, and I will see you next time. Until then, produce, multiply, dominate. God bless.